Welcome to Bat Therapy, psychology of Batman, superheroes, and other comic book characters. Be a fly on the wall or a bat in the cave, listening in on a friendship built out of a love for talking Batman, comics, and the everyday struggle to achieve mental health and happiness.
We are your hosts, clinical psychologist Dr. Amelia Brown and educator and comic aficionado Keaton Hopkins. Don't forget to follow us on YouTube and social media and find our Patreon at patreon.com/battherapy.
This podcast is about providing education and understanding and is not a replacement for mental health treatment or support. If you're needing help, go to bat-therapy.com for resources. I feel like we should start this one with, why so serious?
Blah, blah, right?
I can't do as much. Why so serious? I can't do it.
Why so serious? Like he just, it's intense. It's so intense.
So good. So good. Heath Ledger is the reason I stopped judging actors before I saw them play a character. I said, all right, You got me. From now on, I will wait and see.
He is. And like, I talk to people in older generations, and that's how they felt when Michael Keaton got cast as Batman. They were like, what? Like, no, he does comedy movies. And then they saw it and they're like, yo, Michael Keaton's Batman. Like, this is awesome. Right? And so, yeah, I remember that. I remember they were like, Heath Ledger's going to be the Joker. And I was like, 10 Things I Hate About You, Heath Ledger?
A Knight's Tale?
Knight's Tale? Right? I'm like, he's going to be the Joker who was last played by Jack Nicholson.
I was like, it's going to be terrible. What a terrible choice.
Who would do this? But like, it's one of those things, like, looking back on it, I'm like, ugh, I was one of those kind of nerds. Like, now, if they announce a casting for something, I just shut up.
Yep.
I just shut up, and I'm just like, let's wait. And everyone now references Heath Ledger's Joker for that. It's like, someone gets cast, I'm not a fan. I don't like that. Oh, they're not good for the role. And then as soon as they see they're after Dark Knight, because I remember people were ready to boycott the movie before it even came out. They were like, oh my God. And then he comes out, and honestly, he sets the bar for those roles. And it's so unfortunate that, he's no longer with us, because my God, like, way too...
His talent was,
Right. He was so good in that movie that The Dark Knight Rises was bad, because Christopher Nolan had plans for him to be in the third.
Okay. I was about to say, now. That movie was bad all in its own
said, I will never miss an opportunity to let our listeners know how I feel about Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah.
But yeah, he really set the bar, and I can't wait to break down his character, because his character, it really did change, like, nerd culture. And honestly, as great of a character as he was, there's sometimes I worry that, like, people became obsessed with this Joker in the wrong way. Like, the way that he viewed society, they were like, that's me. I'm above it all. And it's like, no, you're just being mean to a waitress. Like, that's not, like, you're not the Joker right now. Like, you're just being a jerk.
Yeah.
And
in fact, the Joker would see that as pathetic.
Right.
It's like, because he'd say, you're making fun of a waitress? No, you need to go murder your boss. Right.
Yeah, it's one of those things. And so, it was very interesting when his character came out, because it was like, everyone, I'm gonna set my aim away message as a Joker quote. And I'm like, why? You're not gonna blow up a hospital. Like, you're just mad at your English teacher. Like, what? Like, that's just calm down.
But it's interesting, because you're describing this pull that people had for him in real life that was also kind of shown in the movie, because one of the things that stood out to me this time much more quickly than when I've seen it before is, what's one of the first things you see him do? it's like the huge no-no. He kills his entire crew that does a
Yeah.
job with him.
Yeah.
And yet what happens? People continue to join his crew.
They completely flock to him. They
They
completely
flock to him.
flock to him.
They do it anyway. They see what he's made of, and yet they're drawn in by all the money. I probably they can't fully comprehend just how far he's willing to go, even though they've kind of seen it happen probably a little bit too. And also, I think that draw that you're talking about is in the movie, and they allude to it with other stuff like Red Hood stuff with the
Yeah.
Joker and whatnot. But yeah, it's a very interesting parallel to the movie, because I was like,
Yeah.
who's what is going on? Everyone is
He
still
is
joining him, even though he's gonna kill you.
he is charismatic. He is
He is.
charismatic. It
Hmm.
kind of reminds me of people that still join pyramid schemes. It's like
Yeah.
you get into it. You've heard it's a pyramid scheme.
Yeah.
You know it's a
But
pyramid
maybe
scheme.
I'll be near the top of the pyramid.
Maybe I'll be near the top of the pyramid, but also there's always that charismatic person that gives you the
Yeah.
sales pitch
Hmm.
and never describes it as a pyramid scheme until after the first like $400 you spent.
Yeah.
And then it's like,
The
wait a minute.
interesting thing about the Joker is he's so charismatic that he will tell you, absolutely, it's a pyramid scheme. It will ruin your life, and here's why you should still want to do it.
Yeah.
And then people will
Yeah.
join. It's
Yeah. It was.
amazing. It's
It was.
amazing.
And the thing that's so interesting about him is the Joker in this movie is very, very different from any iteration of the Joker I've ever seen, because there's a lot of him that it's almost like if they took the Joker that we are used to
Mm.
and kind of molded him with the Riddler, because he is in this movie an absolute master manipulator. Everyone
Yeah,
he
I see
comes
what you're
into
saying.
contact with, he completely manipulates, even when
Yeah.
he is trying to scare somebody with his scar stories. It's like he changes it up, and it's like this version of that story will freak this person out the most.
Hmm.
This version of this story will strike fear into this one the most, right? And
Yeah.
it's like, okay, we don't know how he got those scars, but they know.
Yeah. Yeah.
They know their version of it, right? And
It's
he just he
oh,
works the room. He does amazing crowd
yes.
work.
He does. And I also keyed in on, I find it interesting that he keeps changing the story about his scars. And there's so many different ways that a person might react or respond to scars like that. I mean, think about it. Not
Mhm.
only does he have scars and damage that's happened, but it's on such a prominent part of his body, everyone's going to see it. And so what does he do? He highlights it with makeup and all these other things. And you're right, he uses it to his advantage, and seems very disconnected from any kind of emotion
Right.
where you would expect it to be. Instead, he's forcing that emotion out of the people around him to get what he wants. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's amazing. He's perfectly locked in on being the ultimate wrong answer to all of these people's equations. And he
Mm,
knows it. It's like he says everything that he knows will drive a person to
yep.
their limits. It's like, oh, Batman, your whole thing is saving people. Well, first and foremost, let me just tell you, Batman, you're not a cop. You're not one of them. They think you're a freak just like me. Like
Mhm.
he knows exactly what to do
Yep.
to make them tick. When Harvey Dent's laid up in the hospital and he goes to see him, you know he's the one that did all of this.
Mhm.
And he says the exact right thing to
Yep.
Harvey Dent. He's like, do I look like someone with a plan? And I'm sitting there like,
Hell yeah, you
yeah,
do.
yeah. You put a bomb in the guy's stomach and then got caught on purpose after trying to after blowing up the street to block that path off so they would go under. Like, you are a master
So I think that's the thing. I
manipulator.
think he enjoys the fact that you 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 have to be the very thing that you're fighting against to achieve. I think he
Yeah.
loves that, and he knows that people just can't comprehend it. and he likes driving people to the opposing side of what they truly believe. Like for example, he's all about anarchy and trying to throw away all the rules. How does he do this? By creating this very structured, organized plan for chaos. Think about that. A
Yeah.
structured plan for
Yeah.
chaos. But I think that is what drives him. He loves the fact that if you are trying to go too far in one direction, you end up slingshotting to the other. And he
Yeah.
just loves pulling that out of everyone else as well.
Yeah. And like I said, he's the ultimate wrong answer, because even when Batman's like, I can figure out this guy. I just need to know what it is he actually wants. And I love the story that Alfred tells about the robber in the jungle that's just stealing all of these expensive gemstones. And he's like, yeah, then we saw a kid playing with the ruby the size of a like tangerine or something. He's like, yeah, because, and we realized he was just throwing them away. He said, because some men just want to watch the world burn. And that's the thing. It's like this Joker is not after anything except absolute chaos and showing people not just showing people the ugliest side of humanity, but making them the ugliest side of humanity. And that's what's so scary about it. It's like he took Harvey Dent and made him into Two-Face. He took Batman and just like wrung him out as tight as he possibly could. You know, even the cops are in here, and the cops are attacking other cops because they're scared that the Joker's gonna blow up a hospital with their loved ones in it. Like, he just drives people the exact extreme opposite direction.
And then what I really love, where does it fall apart? It falls apart with the people from the prison on the ferry boat, or maybe it's not a ferry boat, but whatever that is.
Yeah, it was fair.
It's a ferry, right?
Yeah, it was fair.
So there are the two ferry, for anyone who needs a reminder, there are the two ferry boats, and there's the like quote unquote normal people who haven't broken the law and and then you have I forget which prison that they were taking them from, but
it was Blackgate.
Was it? Okay.
I think it was Blackgate, yeah.
So this shows how much I pay attention to these details, everybody.
No one needs to know the name of the prison, okay? I just happen to because I have a problem. But no one needs.
I know. Keenan and I will talk, and he's like, this director and this person and this illustrator. I'm like, I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, no one needs to know.
But you sound so impressive.
Information. No one needs to know it. That's the only reason I'm on this podcast, is because I know that that's Blackgate Prison. Anyone could do what I'm doing right now.
Well, I think I'm proving I couldn't do it. So when it comes to these two ferry boats, like, okay, they each have a bomb. Who's going to set off the one for the other boat first so you can survive? And I love that where things fall apart for the Joker is with the folks from the prison. And you know, like, people could argue, is this how it would really happen in real life, or is this more a cinematic that neither boat actually did anything? But what I really liked about it was, I think it plays on this whole thing that we're talking about these extremes. And here are people that probably aren't to the extreme as the Joker, because oh boy, is he at the extreme when it comes to violence and lack of empathy and manipulation, all these things. But you have people that can probably understand that side more. And because of that, I think that they're not slingshotting around like everyone else, and you know, everything's turned on its head. They see a spade as a spade. And the guy says, I'm going to do what you should have did at the beginning. And he throws the trigger out the window.
Right.
And I really loved that, because a lot of times we look at incarceration and prison and everything, and you know, those are the bad people, and they go over there.
Frowned on.
Yeah.
So frowned on.
So I love.
They shouldn't ever be able to vote again.
I know,
because they went to right, like they can't get jobs, they can't vote anymore, all because too bad smoked weed one too many times, and now you're a criminal.
So here we have.
We should just blow you up.
Yeah, And here we
Yeah,
have people, and it's like, okay,
it's
well,
horrible.
yeah. And they had every reason to believe that the other boat would blow them up. Both sides believe, hey, the other ones are going to blow us up. And then um, they end up not doing anything. And I think
Right.
that might be the only unexpected thing that happens to the Joker in the entire movie.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, it's almost far-fetched how well his plans work. Like,
Yeah.
even the one when he's like, I don't think he actually planned on getting caught by Batman, right? Like, I don't like in when Commissioner Gordon saves Batman. Like, no, he thought Commissioner Gordon was dead. Like, some of his plans are a little too elaborate to be believable. I'm like,
Mm.
okay,
But part of it, I
you had
think,
to be playing like Lex Luthor level chess to do that. Like, that was no,
part of
just
it,
stop it.
I think part of it too, though, is if you embrace the chaos, you kind of ride it like a wave.
Right.
It's It's the psychopathic version of mindfulness
Yeah.
where
Yes.
where
Yes. Oh
he's
wow.
he's not getting stuck on the fact that it didn't go as planned. He's not getting upset about it.
He's thriving on it.
He's thriving on it. He says, "Okay, let's live in this moment and see
Right.
where things go." It's kind of mindfulness in the scariest way possible.
Ultimate go with the flow villain. Right. Because the thing is, you look at that plan, and it's like, okay, he got caught on purpose. He put a bomb in this guy's chest. He's in the jail cell with this guy. While he's being interrogated, he gets interrogated by Commissioner Gordon. That fails. Then he gets physically abused by Batman and
Mm,
interrogated. He drives Batman away. The cop that's left in the room with him, he drives him into trying to fight him and
yep.
then takes him hostage, right?
He's
Any
very good
one
at
of
reading
those,
people.
yes, yes, absolutely. Like, any one of those goes wrong and his plan doesn't work, right? If that cop had waited outside of the room instead of inside the room,
Yeah.
that plan would not have happened,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
it's just, but it's phenomenal because even when it's like he thinks everything through, but at the same time, like you said, he's go with the flow. Because even the opening scene when they first introduce him, that bank robbery,
Oh, man.
it's so amazing. It's so good. Even and like everyone's just shooting each other in the back. And even when the guy reads him and it's like, I bet the Joker told you to kill me, didn't you? And he's like, oh no, I killed the bus driver. Then the bus just hits him. I'm like, what? What? How did he time it that well?
Well,
There's no way.
and think about it. Manipulation, that's what feeds him. He doesn't he doesn't care about killing all of the people.
Mm-mm.
He wants to get them to kill each other.
He does, and on top of that, what makes him such a good villain is he doesn't have a plan. He just wants to ruin yours.
Yeah.
That's what's interesting. It's like, and when he's talking to Harvey Dent, he's just like, all these people have plans.
Mhm.
He says, I'm just a dog chasing after a car. I don't know what to do if I catch it. I just do things. And even then, he's manipulating Harvey Dent, but at the same time, kind of telling him the truth because this man burned millions of dollars and then put someone on top of it just because he could. And then, right? Or
Yep.
it's like, oh yeah, I come in, I attack this group of guys, and instead of killing these guys, how about we hold tryouts and break a pool stick and one of them gets to join the crew? And I'm like,
Yep.
what a menace. What an absolute menace. Oh my god, what a horrible Tuesday for those guys.
Yeah. So
Like
I was looking into different things that people have written about this Joker and psychology. And because I was just curious kind of what other people were thinking, and it seems all of us seem to kind of veer in the same kind of direction where there's definitely this suggestion of psychopathy where he's a huge manipulator. He doesn't seem to really feel in the way that you would expect a person to feel. There's, doesn't seem to be like guilt or he doesn't seem distressed really in any way, except when things don't go as he plans to unplan things.
Yeah.
And really just does not seem to be connected to other people or himself really, aside from all this chaos and violence that he wants to do. But what I
Yeah.
found really interesting though is, okay, so here's the thing about psychopathy is it's a lot of times it's seen as one version of antisocial personality disorder.
Okay.
So, antisocial personality disorder might sound familiar because our 4th of July episode had Homelander.
Oh yeah.
You asked me about narcissism, and I said, I don't know, but there's definitely some like antisocial kind of things. Here's the thing. So, think about it where, okay, technically you could probably say these are both people that have like antisocial personality disorder or something that seems kind of akin to that. But they're very different. And so a lot of times people have this misconception that if someone is antisocial, that they don't feel, they don't care, they're the Joker. But if you think about Homelander, you actually had someone who cared a lot. He just didn't know what to do with it. And so it came out violently.
Yes.
Versus the Joker, where you're like, oh man, do you care about anything?
Right.
So very I found it really interesting because it's like, hey, here's a great example of how like you can have one diagnosis that maybe like umbrellas over different people. And if you really break it down, okay, they might both be killing people, but it looks very different.
Yes. Yes. And I go back and forth on this character so much because it's an absolute brilliant character.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of it, it's like he's still you don't know what he's gonna do, but he's very particular in what he does. Like he's very particular in the way he words things, in the way he says things, and what, like I said, what makes him just such a good villain for Batman is all about like, hey, what can I do to maintain law and order, to ensure people's safety? And the Joker is literally the exact opposite of that. He's like, what can I do to bring out the worst in people?
It's interesting though, because in a way, Batman is kind of doing the same thing though, because I'm going to bring law and order by doing what? Breaking the law.
Right. And he's causing the thing about Batman is basically he's causing chaos and confusion in
order.
The criminal world.
Yeah, to bring order.
Yeah. He's causing chaos in the criminal world, and the Joker is on the other side of that. Like, hey, all these normal people, they're criminals too.
Yep.
They're just as bad. They're just as bad, and I'm about to show you. And ultimately, he gets proven wrong. But at the same time, there's a part of me that's pretty cynical, and I'm like, somebody would have blown up one of those boats.
I know.
Somebody would have killed the guard to get that thing and blow up that boat. Like, that's the thing. Like, it was
post-COVID, Amelia feels the same way. Same thing hit me with Wonder Woman 1984 or whatever.
I have all kinds of issues with that movie.
I do too. We're gonna have to do it at some point because let's rail on it together.
We're gonna talk about consent.
Oh yeah. And the fact that like maybe she's not all about a guy that she's been hooked up. Anyway, but that movie did a similar thing where it was like everyone had to give back their wish.
And it's like garbage, right? That's complete garbage.
No way.
Like, are you kidding me?
I know. And they could have logicked it a different way that was much more believable. But yeah, post-COVID, a lot of us, I think, see this sort of thing a little differently and are like, really? No one blew anything up? Are we sure?
Absolutely. Because, post-COVID, I'm sitting there looking at it. I'm like, no one blew up that boat. The reason we know that one of those boats would have gotten blown up, hell, both of those boats would have gotten blown up. They would have simultaneously done it. Because this is a world where someone wouldn't wear a face mask in Burger King, right? Like,
Yeah.
hey, just wear this mask when you go get your cheeseburger and you can take it off as soon as you get back to your car. Nope, can't do it. These are the people that would 100%
Well,
blow that boat
but
up.
here's the thing. Here's what is believable though is the one boat of the non prison imprisoned
Yeah,
people.
the civilians.
Yeah, I don't know what to
I
call them.
guess.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
that
don't know.
feels
Yeah.
weird. But um, what I found believable was they voted to blow up the prison transport ferry boat, and where they didn't get hung up on the vote, they got hung up on the reality of I do this thing and immediately someone else dies. Now, so here's something that would make them more likely to do it. Is they all voted on it, so it's not my responsibility. It's kind of a diffusion of responsibility thing. It wasn't like me; it was all of
Yeah.
us, kind of thing. So that could have worked in favor of them doing it. Also, they wouldn't have seen the people die. They would see a like boat blow to pieces, but they probably would not easily see actual people dying. So there are some things to feel more disconnected, but to I pull the trigger and then someone dies versus a
Right.
mask. I wear a mask. If I don't wear a mask, then the people around me may or may not get sick. And then some of those people would potentially may or may not get, so it's the more direct, first off, the more immediate, and second off, the more obvious of a harmful thing, then you're going to have more hesitation.
Yeah.
But yeah, at the same time,
I'm glad you
I don't
made
know.
that point. I'm glad you made that point because one of us has to be less cynical. We can't have a
I'm
podcast
relying
where
on
it's two
psychology.
insanely cynical people.
I'm relying on psychology and what we know about what makes people more or less likely to act on something.
There
And
we
so
go.
there are reasons to believe that, it would be different if I took off the mask and then the person nearby would literally drop dead or
Yeah.
drop sick or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, there would probably be a lot less people worrying about the mask.
Right. If we were to make it equal, and it was like, hey, someone on the boat just doesn't believe the Joker, and there's not an actual bomb. And that's just the media wants you to think that our boat has a bomb, but it doesn't have a bomb. And y'all are all sheep for thinking there's a bomb on this boat, even though the guy right there is holding the trigger to the bomb. Just trust me, there is no bomb. Don't ignore everybody. There's no bomb. That's closer to that. But we're not talking 2020 right. That's a we're talking about a great movie. Um
Oh man. It Yeah,
I do
it is a
love
tough one, but I have to say though, the actual acting on it, that it's believable that that's where they got caught. They
yeah,
weren't able to
because
move past.
no one wants to be the person that pulls that trigger. Because even there's the one
Yeah.
guy that's like, give it to me, I'll do it, and then even he can't do
Yep.
it.
Yeah.
And I do also like that they focus on the point that, hey, they haven't blown us up yet either.
Mhm.
So maybe they're not
Yeah.
maybe they're not so bad. But at the same time,
Yep.
what's so horrible is if Batman hadn't stopped the Joker,
Yep.
he would have blown them both up. Like he would have done
And
it
there's
just
that too. Yeah.
just to
It
prove a point
they
and
kind
just to
of
scare people in the future when
Yeah.
he does it again.
Well, and they essentially did like he did a real life version of the prisoner's dilemma. And so there is this whole thing where sometimes they would kind of experiment and see how people would react if you said, okay, you're in this hypothetical situation and essentially let's say there's a certain amount of money and you can take X amount of money without anybody noticing and then no one gets caught. And so I don't remember the actual details of it, but kind of a similar kind of thing. So let's say there's a certain amount of money. Like if one person takes the money, then everything's good. If you split the money and you all get less and it adds up to that same amount, everyone's good. But if multiple people try to take that huge amount of money, police are knocking at your door, they're noticing all this money's gone. That kind of
Right.
situation, and looking at how people respond to it. So it is kind of one of those things where theoretically, if the Joker doesn't blow everybody up anyway, which I guess people didn't really know much about the Joker yet. It was mainly the cops and Batman that knew him. Because 5 years from then, people are going, well, if we don't blow someone up, Joker's going to do it.
Yeah.
But they
Yeah.
don't
They
know
learned
him
yeah,
that
they
well
learned that lesson in
yet.
that universe quick. Like, no.
Yeah,
He actually blew up a hospital. Like,
exactly.
he
So
did that.
they haven't learned that lesson about him yet, so they don't realize that there's probably that worst case scenario. But it is one of those things where do we act in a way that's better for everyone, but I don't get as much for myself as maybe I could versus we could screw somebody over. So, but in this scenario, yeah, it is one of those like, are they going to pull the trigger? We got to pull the trigger first. And that was smart of the Joker. That's how you make it more likely that people would do it, because if they feel like they're on a time crunch, someone's going to be more likely to hit that trigger.
And even then, he was still manipulating them into the experiment because he announces like, "Hey, guess what? I'm just gonna start killing people. And guess what? If you try and leave the city," he even scares them onto the ferry because he says,
Yeah. Oh,
"You're gonna have a
yeah.
surprise for you if you try and take the tunnel or the bridges." It's like, wow, wow, you got them on the boat because they were like, "Oh, he said the tunnels and bridges. He didn't say boat." And sure enough, he was
So
like, "Now my plan begins."
So here's another interesting thing to point out as well about this whole situation and why it might be believable that it's not only the prison boat that would be potentially considering the trigger, using the trigger, is a lot of times we might think of, oh, the people in prison, those are the worst of the worst. Those are the people with, like I was talking about psychopathy when it comes to the Joker or antisocial personality disorder, where, and by the way, not everyone in prison has one of these things by any means. Oftentimes we think of, oh, if someone goes to prison, they did something bad. If someone does something bad, our brains try and make sense of the world. If someone does something bad, that means that they are a worse person. That's why they are there. And people not there are better people. Our brains just automatically will try and kind of label things like that.
Right.
However, just like not everyone in prison has psychopathy, has antisocial personality disorder, or has things where they might kind of manipulate the world around them, not really play by the rules, there's actually a lot of people not in prison who have these attributes.
Yeah.
In fact, they tend to draw themselves to certain kinds of occupations, we
Yeah.
find as well, tend to have kind of higher levels, but they actually they range, but they say like 1% or so of the population has antisocial personality disorder, and that's
Huh.
actually that's 1 out of 100 people. 1%.
Huh.
That's a lot of people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's about the same amount of people that have schizophrenia. So if you think about it,
I didn't
both,
realize that many people in the population had schizophrenia.
yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Huh.
you know. So there's this there's essentially an acknowledgement in this movie that prison doesn't delineate between people as cleanly as we like for it to be, and I really really like
Right.
that.
Right. They're wearing orange and got caught. You're wearing normal clothes and didn't. That's basically what it's almost like saying. It's like, look, they're not that different. And I did like the way that that was portrayed, that they weren't just portrayed as savages. And it's one of those things. I think that even left Batman happily in awe. Like, I think even he was happy. It's like, huh, I really thought one of those boats was gonna go sky high. You know
Yep,
what?
yep.
Gotham can be saved. I told you, Joker. And he went home and was just like, phew. That was a close one. But I also love that, like, the Joker is reading Batman throughout this entire movie. And there's one point in the movie that I always laugh at. Because even when the Joker realizes that the Batman is in love with Rachel Dawes because of how he's reacting constantly. And one of the things that's
Yeah.
funny and that I always think about is when he breaks into the fundraiser and Batman jumps out the window and saves Rachel. and just leaves all those other people just up there with him.
He is kind of
And
a dumbass.
that was the moment. That was the moment the Joker was like, "Huh, he has a thing for that racial shit." Because once he saved her, he never came back. He was like, "Screw all these other people." I guess I got someone to hone in on now since Harvey Dent's not here, but I'll eventually find him too. But like,
Yeah, it makes you wonder about Superman. Because he saves Lois Lane all the time.
oh yeah, once an episode in Smallville at least.
Exactly. Yeah, you'd think more superheroes would be targeted in this way.
Yeah, like just hone in for him, which is why right, it's one of those things like, man, he really has a thing for her. Like Spider-Man, I feel like does it a little bit better because Mary Jane isn't always in the wrong place
Mm.
at the wrong time. Lois Lane finds villains better than Superman does, and Superman has powers. Lois Lane will like Lois Lane is like a bargain bin shopper for villains. Like she will just find the perfect villain every week.
2 for $5. There
She
you go.
should be a cop, honestly. Like if she
Mm.
should be a detective versus a reporter, the way that she can just find villains.
She doesn't want to be tied down like that to all those rules and regulations.
Fair. Yeah, fair. Also fair. Because she also doesn't mind breaking laws to get stories.
Yeah. You know that episode of The Adventures of Lois and Clark where she gets his powers?
Oh, yes.
She should have just kept him. What? She'd be better at it. That's what I'm hearing you say.
Agreed. Definitely. And but it also makes you think, like, looking at this movie, Superman's the perfect superhero to fight the Joker. Like, Superman and Batman just need to switch cities. They do. Because Batman could probably outthink on the same level with Lex Luthor to try and foil his plans ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
And Superman just has superpowers. It's one of those things like, oh, yeah, Joker, I deactivated both of those bombs already. But
yeah,
okay.
I guess that's true.
Unless we're talking Injustice.
That's where my brain keeps going, is this Joker has no limits.
That Joker could be the Joker from Injustice that came up with that maniacal ass plan.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah. Definitely. But oh man, he really made that movie and set the bar for good villains in superhero movies.
Yep.
Like and it, I've always said, like, if you stick the villain, you stick the landing. And that was one of the first ones, because like I liked Batman Begins, but the villains in that, like Ra's al Ghul and Scarecrow, like they didn't stick with me the way that this character did. This character, it was like I had never seen anything like that. And I remember walking out of that movie and being like, that's the best comic book movie I've ever seen. And even now, a lot of people hold it as their number one. And well deserved.
There were so many things good about it, and just did a really good job of, this is a very, I think, good villains, and I like anti-heroes too. They pull something out of you, and you can really relate to them in some way, even if they're to this extreme, like the Joker, where you were talking earlier, everyone's quoting the Joker. They're not going to go out and murder everybody and manipulate everyone like that. But it strikes this chord with just some of that dystopian feeling that comes with reality. That I think that is just so interesting.
And it was just some of his deliveries on things. It just it gave me chills. Like when I was rewatching it.
Also the camera, his delivery, but like so one of I think one of the best scenes is he's hanging upside down, and from the rope, Batman has him swinging, and. And he's essentially talking about how he might seem completely off kilter and chaotic, but it's actually he's what makes sense. And he's essentially like trying to turn the world on its head. And as he's talking, they turn the camera so he's right side up.
And honestly, and it's one of those things, yeah. And that's what one of his lines when he's talking, he's like, I'm an agent of chaos. And the thing about
Mm-hmm.
chaos is it's fair. And I do love
Mm,
that monologue when he's talking and he's like, nobody panics when things go according to plan, even if it's something terrible.
hmm.
If a gang member gets shot or
Yep.
a bunch of soldiers get blown up,
Mm-hmm.
nobody panics because it's like, oh, yeah, that sort of thing happens.
Yep.
But if I kill the mayor or I blow up a hospital, everyone loses their minds because
Mm-hmm.
that's not in the plan. And
Yep.
it was one of those things where it just, that even caught me off guard because I'm like, yeah, that's so that's so true, right? You hear about soldiers getting killed in another country and you're like, wow, that's horrible, but you're not losing sleep over it
Yeah.
versus a mass shooting at a mall or a Walmart or a
Mm-hmm.
laundromat, something that you're like, okay, what is this? This is complete chaos. That's the wrong place for this kind of thing to happen. And that catches all of us off guard. And that's what's so interesting about his character. You walked out of that movie and he had you thinking. Like
Yeah.
you were just sitting there
Yes.
thinking, like, oh my God, like he just set the bar for this. And it was that much more heartbreaking when you hear like Heath Ledger passed away like right after making that
Yeah.
because it's just like, man, you really just like showed the world that you were one of the greatest actors of all time. And
You
then
know, I don't think I'd want to be that great of an actor.
yeah,
I just the place you have to put yourself, I would assume, to really encapsulate a character. Let's take this character for example.
because he was a method actor, wasn't he?
Oh God, was he?
I think
That would make it even
I
worse. That
want to
would make
say
it
he was a method.
way
Yeah,
worse.
yeah,
Way worse. Yeah, it just because you have to. I think for most actors anyway, you have to pull from something,
yeah,
and that would just take so much to pull for some of these characters out there. That would just be really tough.
yeah. To be able to go there, but like yeah, kudos and
Mhm.
job well done because absolutely phenomenal antithesis to Batman.
Oh, yeah.
And like that's what he nailed so well is that he is Batman would like to be lawful good. He
Yep.
wants lawful good, but he's chaotic good.
Yep.
Batman's chaotic good and Joker is straight up chaotic evil to the bone.
He's organized chaos.
Yeah? You think I just
I mean, think about
yeah,
everything you talked about.
yeah,
He's calculated, he's planning, he and he's able to shift and problem solve to the point where something that could not have been his original plan seems like he planned it all along. I
yeah.
think that's why it's so interesting seeing them play off of each other. You have chaos bringing order and order bringing chaos.
Yeah. And I say I'll okay, so I'll say he's chaotic evil just because he doesn't have a master plan as far as what he's trying to
Mm.
accomplish. He's like, fine, let's just see where it all goes. I'm gonna blow up both of them. No one did it. All right, see you next week. Like it's if Batman hadn't caught him, he wouldn't have stopped.
Mm-mm.
He
Mm-mm.
would have been like, well, I'm gonna try it, but this time with a school bus. Like that's what he would
Well,
have done.
and he even comments on this. What does he say? What happens when um what was it? What happens when blanking on it. When an unstoppable force meets an immovable what was it?
I can't remember.
Hold on. Yeah, he says what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object. He even takes it to like physics and stuff.
Yeah.
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 And it's hitting on exactly what you're talking about. He's not going to stop.
Yeah.
And Batman's not going to stop either. He's not going to stop stopping him. And
And
so, yeah,
it's fun because the thing is, comic book, like a regular moviegoer is going to see this and they're like, this is a good movie. And us comic book fans are sitting there watching it and we're like, this is the beginning of
mhm.
something that's really gonna go the test of time.
Oh yeah.
Like, because they
Do you
introduce
know
him and we're just sitting there like, oh man,
this is
Batman, you think you're stressed now.
this is Death of the Family Joker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, oh
That's who
Batman,
this is.
you think you're stressed now.
Yeah.
Just wait. Like
Yeah.
that's the thing. Like it was great seeing it like as an origin story, like Batman's first encounter with this Joker that we just because it's like, oh man,
Mhm. Mhm.
this is it. This is gonna be nuts. This is gonna be wild. Like I would have loved to have seen this Joker in The Dark Knight Rises. Like,
Mm.
because I'm willing to bet, like, Bane would have kept him in prison if he could have. Like, no, don't let him out. Like, yes, let all the Arkham inmates out, but definitely keep that particular one
Yep.
locked up because we just don't need that. Like Joker's not in this. Joker doesn't. Amanda Waller doesn't want Joker in the Suicide Squad,
Mm-mm.
right?
Mm-mm.
She brings him on the team. He doesn't care about a bomb in his head. He's like, let's put a bomb in everyone's head.
Oh
Let's,
God, you're so right.
yeah, everybody should have a bomb in their head. Let's do it and give everyone the trigger.
And you know the most messed up part of that is where does your brain go? That would be more fair.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Some of
Turn
those
the
people
podcast
probably
off.
had
We're
pretty
doing the
terrible
wrong thing.
starts. Yeah. Part of you gets it. And
Yeah.
that is what makes a good villain.
Yeah, and that's why people got infatuated with him, whether it was good or bad. People got infatuated with him because man, the dude made some good points, even though he was a super dark character.
Yeah, he was such a dark character. Oh man. Yeah, I wonder I wonder what these I guess we're seeing some of the next iterations of the Joker and I mean we've talked about potentially doing more than one version of him because man, there's so many out there.
Oh
Um
yeah, definitely. I would love to. We're yeah, because like, gosh, even the Joaquin Phoenix joke,
I was just thinking about his
phenomenal
yeah.
character,
Coming
phenomenal character.
from a very different
Mm-hmm.
perspective.
Yeah,
Yeah, I need to rewatch that movie actually.
yeah.
I've heard like I've heard some people really really like it and I was really compelled by it and then I've heard some really good points just about that balance, right? Of okay, things happen to you and also you're responsible for your actions and
Yeah.
kind of that balance of things, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Every
that
iteration
is an
of the Joker
interesting.
brings something memorable, even if it's not your favorite Joker. I feel like comic book fans can remember something
Yeah.
about every Joker,
Yeah.
every iteration of him, because he is he's one of the he's the most iconic like villain
I think
there
you're right.
is in the comic book universe. Like he's the most iconic. Like if some like like it's one of those things. He's the number one overall. Like everybody knows the Joker. Joker's extremely iconic, and yeah, I loved what Heath Ledger did with his character. And honestly, rewatching this movie, I was super it reminded me just how good it is because honestly, I hadn't watched it in a really long time because Dark Knight Rises left a bad taste in my mouth, and it's
Mm.
hard for me to watch part twos when I know part threes are horrible.
Uh,
It's really difficult for me to do it.
I mean,
Um,
like, let's be fair. It's the same guy playing Batman, but they don't feel connected to me really.
yeah, yeah,
Same Commissioner Gordon, same Batman. they kind of talk about, like you said, after Heath Ledger died, I feel like they clean slated it. But
Yeah, they did. Yeah, I think Nolan definitely had different plans for that third movie
has he
because
ever shared
after
what the original plans were?
I'm not sure. I've heard rumors.
Mm,
I've heard rumors here and there, but I don't know what's true and what isn't. I don't think he's ever come forward and said anything specific. But if so, fans, please let us know because I would love to keep
yeah.
talking about this more.
About
And
what could
also,
have been.
yeah, and also tell us who your favorite Joker is.
Who's your favorite Joker?
I cheat.
Mm.
I cheat because I go animated series. I go,
Oh, I
oh,
mean, Mark
Mark Hamill.
Hamill.
Mark Hamill. I feel like it's cheating because people are like, "Who's your
Why?
favorite Batman?" It's like Kevin Conroy because Batman the animated series is
So
so
good.
good, right?
So,
And so
so
when yeah,
I guess I get what you're saying because maybe it's not so kind of like you were saying how the villain made this movie, and
yeah,
so it's not the best Batman movie,
yeah, I don't care. Yeah, I don't.
but it's an excellent movie. I get what you're saying because Batman the animated series. I mean, I love Kevin Conroy to death. You know what I mean? But I I love Kevin Conroy, but I do get what you're saying, where I feel like that is just a really good story and compilation altogether
Yeah, it's a
versus
great
someone
universe.
standing out on their
Right. Like
own.
what stood out for me in this movie about Batman was like one, he's super attached to Rachel,
Mm.
super attached. And then two, I thought his voice was weird in the first one, and then they gave him like five times as many lines in this one. And I was just like, this is painful to listen to because he started like speaking entire paragraphs in the
I know.
Batman voice. And I'm like, that's gotta be exhausting. Like, either you die, hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. And I'm like, you can tell Christian Bale is so tired trying to
I
get
mean,
that
at least it's
out.
not Misha Collins as Castiel because he was trapped doing that for years.
Oh man, like yeah, like 15 years he's just like hating, like and just like completely straining and vexing his vocal cords.
I wonder if he sounds different now just because of that.
Right?
So I would have to say if we're not talking comics and we're just talking uh, you know, the cartoons or live action, I mean, obviously Heath Ledger's amazing. So he would probably be top, but I think other than that, I really like I don't remember the actor's name, but he played the kid in Gotham.
Oh yeah, Jerome.
Yeah.
Yeah, the actor
That,
character
they
Jerome.
allude
Yeah.
to, yeah, yeah. I was very impressed. And I was like,
He was awesome. He did really well.
how does a kid
He did really
do
well.
that? I mean, you
Yeah.
got Heath Ledger to live up to, and I thought he nailed it.
He did a very good job. He did a great job. Yeah. I tell you, they're all so different because my nostalgia goggles growing up watching Nicholson Joker, like
Oh yeah.
also absolutely
I
phenomenal. Like, like
yeah.
yeah.
I really hope this isn't offensive, but I feel like that was mainly Jack Nicholson. How much do you think he had to act?
He's such a good actor, right? Like, I don't know,
No,
like
he is.
you
But
see
I
him at
mean,
like Laker games and it's like, is that the Joker right there? Is that just
right. It's
like what is he doing? Like,
I think
yeah.
he did a phenomenal job, and I think that Jack Nicholson might just have characteristics about himself that he was just able to have fun and play with.
He just happened to be the perfect character for that role. Right. Yeah, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. Right. Like it was that's true. That's true. I do wonder like how much of it was like him like, all right, this is how I think this character should be played versus, hey Jack, just have fun. Like
Yeah, yeah. Which,
and I think he
there's
definitely
nothing wrong with
did.
it. He nailed it for sure. I
Right.
I do like just really like those dark renditions like in the comics, the Joker that does Death of the Family and he essentially tortures every
Oof.
single kid
Yeah.
that Bruce has ever taken under his wing
Yeah. That
to the
one
point
was
where they
yeah.
all abandon him.
Yeah.
And
That was
then
yeah.
yeah, and then that's the same Joker where they end up, in a cave underneath Gotham and where you get the whole restart of Bruce
Yeah.
later on.
Okay,
So
yeah, alright, so, yeah, we're gonna have to do Death of the Family now because, yeah,
that is a
that's a
good
really
one.
good storyline
Oh
to dig
man.
into, and I
You I
wanna
think
devote
you're the I think
yeah.
you're the one that told me to read that and I started reading. I was like, "Oh my god."
Yeah, where's his face? What is happening right now? I have so many questions.
Oh,
But yeah, like, I think that, but yeah, going back, Heath Heath's Joker is definitely going. I think he definitely set the bar. Like, nobody can play Joker now without people thinking about Heath
it's
Ledger's
true. Yeah.
Joker. No one can because he he made an he that was an all-star, and well, it was an Oscar-winning
Yeah.
performance
Yeah.
in a comic book movie.
Yeah.
Unheard of, right? Like that was big. That was
Back
extremely
then I
big.
was weird for liking Batman so much.
Right.
Yeah.
That was when it wasn't as cool. That was when it wasn't as cool. This movie made like yeah, this was one of the movies that took a step toward nerddom
Mm,
just becoming pop culture. And it's
yeah.
because of what he did with that role because
Yeah.
people
I agree with
that
you.
weren't comic book fans watched it and they were just like, "Whoa,
Mhm.
what a villain. What a character." Right? I mean, he just yeah, he took it to another level and gosh, miss that guy.
Thanks for nerding out with us. I'm clinical psychologist Dr. Amelia Brown.
And I'm educator and comic aficionado Keaton Hopkins. Check out my TV and movie reviews on YouTube at Team JVS. Check out our website at bat-therapy.com, our Bat Therapy YouTube channel, and follow us on social media. And don't forget our Patreon page at patreon.com/battherapy. See you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel.